Good evening, everybody. I want to thank you so much for coming out. I know what a hassle it is in the evening, how many of you here work. And so we particularly appreciate your coming out this evening. We have a full evening planned ahead, and we'd like to keep it moving because we hope to get you out by little after 8 or as close to 8 as possible. So tonight we're going to talk about college. So you are all now, I guess, considered rising seniors, and you will be planning for college. How many here is this the first time for having your son or daughter go to college? Okay, so about half it looks like. Those lights, I guess they have to be this way. And it's quite a daunting prospect. So tonight we hope after you're going to go to different rooms, hopefully we'll make it, you'll feel a little more educated, a little more knowledgeable at the end of the night. And then we will be meeting with your son or daughter to do an individual plan. So tonight is an overview for you and your son or daughter. Okay, so I want to introduce everybody. Marjorie Coben, that's Christian D'Angelo. You want to come up, Christian? And this is Alexa Gonzalez, and of course Doreen Welsh. And then we have some special guests tonight, some seniors. We have more to come. Seniors, you guys want to stand up? These are seniors who volunteered their time. They were gracious enough to, more will be coming. They were gracious enough to be here tonight, and they're going to answer your questions on what it's been like, what the process has been like for them. We are having, I want to do a little PR here for a college fair. It's sponsored by Mercer County Professional Counselors Association. Doreen Welsh has been involved in that for many, many years as a past president of it. It is on the back of your agenda, I believe, so you can look at that. Is it on the back? Yeah. Okay. Tuesday, April 21st, Mercer County Community College from 6 to 8. They usually have many, many colleges, over, 150?
Just if you check our website, every weekend it gets updated, so there's about 65 registered so far, so you can check it out.
But they usually have a really good turnout. It's a great way to meet with the admissions representatives and ask questions. Oh, here comes another senior now. Sujay, you can come down here, thanks. And it's a great way to ask questions for your admission representatives, get free stuff, have them. It's always nice to have a face and a handshake and ask some questions, because these are the people who are going to be part of the committee that are going to make decisions about your son or child. All right, so the evening agenda is, we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline. When do you do what? When you should be finished next year with all your college applications. We'll talk about standardized testing, the SAT versus the ACT, the process of selecting a college, the college visit itself, which is extremely important. Then we're going to have, and this is why we ask you to bring your son or daughter's Chromebook, Alexa and Christian, Mr. D'Angelo, Ms. Gonzalez, are going to do a hands-on workshop, mini workshop with you on the use of Naviance, which has been our college program that all students will use when they apply to college. They actually have to use it, and it's a great, great tool. And then we'll also have time to you'll ask questions for our wonderful volunteers, our student panel. And, we have 2 more who just arrived too. Great, nice to see you guys. Okay, so this is the breakout. Before we go, we're going to do a little game. Mrs. Welsh is going to conduct a game, but this is where you're going to go. You're going to after we do the game, play a game, and trust me, no one's going to be humiliated too much. No, you won't be. You're going to, half of you, I guess we'll just split them in half. Half will go to the library with me and Mrs. Welsh. The other half will go to Mr. D'Angelo in room 314 and Ms. Gonzalez. And then you'll switch at 7:25. Those who are with Mrs. Welsh and I will go to the 314. And those who were in 314 will come back to the library where Mrs. Welsh and I will be. All right, any questions before we start with the game? Anybody have any general questions? Okay, Mrs. Welsh, do you want to?
You need 9 volunteers. Here, we'll give these things. 9 volunteers. If you don't volunteer, we're going to pick you.
You don't have to sing, you don't have to dance, none of that.
Now, it's really a neat game. We love starting out with this.
Paper, that's it.
Yeah. And don't look down, okay? Okay, we got one. Do you have somebody?
When I hold the paper, it's easier because we don't have to answer the questions.
Okay. And we're going to ask you to get in order here. There's another one.
Here we go.
We pick if you don't volunteer.
That's right. Come on up. Thank you. Come on down.
And you're going to come up this way. You're going to up.
We got it.
Okay. This is all right.
I have 9.
Here we go. We're going higher. Who wants a 3.6? Okay. You do. Okay. Who wants a 3.7?
How did they know?
3.8. Yes.
We
Let's
just
move
know.
down.
We just know these things.
You want to move closer down a little bit towards Mrs. Welsh?
Come
And
on
we
down.
have 3.9 and a 4.0. Who wants the 3.9? All right, Mr. Stever wants 3.9.
All right, 2 more. 1 more.
You're always going for the good stuff. Who wants 4.0? Who wants the big 4.0?
Up.
Here we go.
I think we got him.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you for volunteering, all of you. The rest of you in the audience, you are the admissions committee from a highly prestigious university, okay? The committee is at the end of the admissions cycle and has 9 great applications and can only choose 3 students. Before you are all the candidates that have applied for admissions, and we have them in order from highest to lowest. Okay, they're all great candidates, and your job is to decide, based upon personal qualities and qualifications, who is going to be admitted. And we're not going by the highest GPA, okay? And this is a really true story. These are things that colleges look for, okay? All right. Okay, as I read things, you have things on the back of your pieces of paper. I hope you can read them in these lights. Okay, so as I read them, we're going to ask you to either move up spaces or down spaces, okay?
So you're going to have to like spread out just a little bit, I would say, to make room. There you go.
Okay, here we go. If you have taken an exceptionally strong academic program, move up 2 spaces.
When we say
Meaning,
two,
move up this way or this way?
That way.
Okay. So, 1.
and then 2.
Okay. If you play the oboe or violin, move up 1 space.
Or viola is the other one?
Oboe.
Oh, both, okay.
If you clearly stated that this college was your first choice by filing an early decision application and commitment, move up 2 spaces. If your intended major is psychology or pre-med, move back 1 space. If your intended major is Greek, move up 2 spaces. If you do not know any of your teachers well and had trouble finding someone to write your college recommendation, move back 2 spaces.
You both move back.
We both move back.
If, when you word processed your college essay, you forgot to change the name of the college you were applying to, move back 4 spaces. That's a big boo-boo.
You'd be shocked how often it happens.
If you are a legacy, move up 2 spaces. If you did not write the optional essay for your college application, move back 1 space. If the topic of your college essay was my trip to France or what I learned from playing sports, move back 1 space. If you wrote the essay of the year, the one that was passed around the admission office, it was so remarkable, move up 3 spaces. If you plagiarized an AP US history paper and got caught, sit down. You're out of the competition entirely. If you will be the first in your family to attend college, move up 2 spaces. If you participated in an enriching summer program between your junior and senior years, move up 2 spaces. If you have participated in a significant community service project, move up 1 space. If you have participated in no extracurricular activities, move back 3 spaces. If you are a varsity athlete, move up 2 spaces. If you got a D in an academic course at the end of your junior year, move back 3 spaces. If you are an Eagle Scout, move up 2 spaces. If you came to the college information session and introduced yourself to the college representative, and in the case of the student who just got the D, and explained the extenuating circumstances, move up 1 space. If you are a legal resident of Idaho, move up 3 spaces. If you never gave your counselor any personal information for use in writing your college recommendation, move back 1 space. If your last name is Kennedy, the name of the college library is Kennedy, and it's not a coincidence, move all the way to the front and stay there. Okay, so the point of all this is GPA just does not cut it. It's not the whole reason that colleges accept students. We have the legacy number 1.
3-2.
Okay, 3-2. Okay, so it's not the 4.0. And at the very, very tail end here, GPA of 3.7. Okay, so you kind of heard all the reasons, all the things that colleges are looking for. We need information to do recommendations, and extracurriculars are important. Grades certainly are important, but as you heard, there's many other factors that colleges look at. Okay, we want to thank our panelists for volunteering.
Thank you so much. Good job, guys.
I just want to mention one more thing. If you remember, the person whose major was pre-med and what? And psychology, they had to move back because certain programs, you might be a very strong student, have all the right credentials, but you're applying for certain programs that have higher standards than others, clearly higher standards than others, and you know it factors into the admissions decisions when you're applying to those programs. So when you identify those programs to major in college, you have to be an even stronger student, and your resume has to be even stronger than myself if I'm applying to something like education, because us education.
To add to that, it's not just, it's the more competitive programs, but it's also the very common college majors. Like psychology might not be more competitive, but tons of kids apply as psychology majors, so it doesn't really set them apart. Whereas the Greek major, something different, and those departments want students, so that can make a difference as well. Right, the overlay. So if you have something unique that kind of sets you apart, whether it's a skill or a gift or an interest and you want to major in that, that really helps.
Are you saying that you can apply as a Greek major because you really want to go there to learn medicine or to be a pre-med?
I'm not suggesting you should do that, only because the program that you want to get into is probably very selective, and it's the easiest way to get in is as an incoming freshman, because once all those spots are taken, it's hard to transfer in. So you should look for a school that has the program that you want, where your chances are the best for admission, if that makes sense.
All right, so we're now going to do a breakout. So half of you are going to stay here, and half of you will be moving to room 314. So let's, obviously we're not breaking families about here. So on the left, why don't you stay here? On the right, follow Miss D'Angelo and Mr. D'Angelo and Ms. Gonzalez. Close, wherever they are. My left, stay here. My right, follow Mr. D'Angelo and Ms. Gonzalez.
So, the first thing I'm going to start off by asking you guys, telling you guys, kind of, is that we asked all of our juniors and then all of our seniors, when they turn into seniors, to get us Bragg Sheets. And it's a feature in Naviance. This is our side, by the way, the side that the counselors use. When you guys log in, you're brought to this page. And if you go to About Me, and you look up here, there's two Bragg Sheets, a parent Bragg Sheet and a student Bragg Sheet. We ask students to please do the Bragg Sheet for us. This helps us write their recommendation. Okay, so normally what happens is we meet junior year to do college planning, and we talk about the Bragg Sheet. And then at some point before junior year is over, we talk about the Bragg Sheet. And then when we come back as seniors in the fall, we talk about the Bragg Sheet. And we keep checking, because we know the applications are going to start coming in, and the Bragg Sheet never appears. Okay, so I bring this up to ask for you guys to help us stay on your juniors about submitting the Bragg Sheet. And you guys are also welcome to do the parent Bragg Sheet too. That's helpful to us. In my opinion, not as helpful, but it's always best to get it directly from the student. We also write a number of recommendations without a Bragg Sheet because we don't have any choice, because they end up never doing the Bragg Sheet. And that's fine. We're still able, we still know them, they've been with us 4 years, but there are certain blanks that the Bragg Sheet helps us to fill in that we're not able to do without some input from the student. So there's that.
I'm sorry, I came in late.
Yes.
It's the Bragg Sheet on
Naviance.
Lawrence Naviance.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Family Connection. All of you guys will eventually be in Family Connection. Your student, you using your student's log on information, but you will be in eventually. Last point about the Bragg Sheet, at the very bottom, once students put in 1 or 2 sentences into each screen, 1 or 2 sentences, not a paragraph. They go to the bottom, and they save it. Every year we get students saying, I submitted it twice, and we ask if they saved it and they can't remember saving it, so it gets lost, nothing happens. So please remember to save the Bragg sheet when you type in the information. And then when we go to this side, we use all similar tabs to be able to access various information about your students. But we look at the Bragg sheet strictly on this side. There's one other thing I can't forget to mention to you guys. There's another thing we deal with every year. We deal with resumes, resume building, having some type of resume saved somewhere. Okay, and there are many students that do have resumes early on, some even as 10th graders. But then there are many, many seniors who still don't have a resume going into the college search process. So,
What type of resume?
Right.
it's a good question. Normally, as adults, we think of resumes to do what?
Work.
To work, to apply for a job. Students, however, are applying to what? College. So the resume is going to reflect your accomplishments throughout high school. So the resume is going to have, this is the easiest resume function that I've found anywhere, template. It literally brings you to every pertinent piece of information that goes on a resume. And when you click on each one of these and you put information in, and then you click Add to Resume, at the very end, when you're finished adding the information, it puts it into resume format for you. So it's a really, really easy function, and not enough students use it, in my opinion. Back to your question. What goes on a college resume are classes you're proud of, community service, volunteer work that you've done, clubs, activities, sports, jobs you've held, enrichment activities that you've done in the summer. All of that stuff is what goes on a college resume. Okay, you're gonna use it when you apply to your schools, but if you remember us talking about the college fair that happens every spring, where over 100 colleges are represented, we ask you to bring a handful of resumes to drop on the tables of all of these representatives so that they have basically, it's almost like you've applied to many schools right at a college fair. So a resume is really handy, and it's going to be used throughout the college process. Okay, so home screen. This is where you're brought when you log into your student's account. One of the things you'll see right off the bat are the messages that you have. You see no messages here because this is a fictional student. But when you log into your student's account, whether you've used it or not, you've gotten messages. They're sitting there waiting for you to open, like an email address that you don't use, basically. But if you use it, some of the stuff that we send out through Naviance is school announcements, scholarship opportunities, internship opportunities, programs that might be offered in the summertime, jobs, all kinds of things that flow through the school. We use Naviance as the vehicle to deliver it to you guys. The other really cool things about this program is every month throughout senior year, Ms. Coben uploads a scholarship bulletin electronically into Naviance. So if you click on any given month's link, it brings you to a list of scholarships available to anyone who meets the criteria listed in that scholarship. For kids that don't use Naviance or haven't used Naviance, there's a hard copy kept also in the guidance department. So either way, kids have access to the scholarship bulletin every year. Down below are a bunch of links that also are very, very useful in the college search process. Couple big ones are, first of all, there's a link to the college fair. So that will be updated on an ongoing basis leading up to the fair. So as colleges commit to come, they'll show up on the college fair's link. So you'll be able to kind of keep a running tab about the college fair. The other thing is there's a link to the common application right from Naviance. Anyone not familiar? The common application is exactly what it sounds like. It's a common application. About 75% of schools use the common application. That's probably a little high, maybe closer to 65. So if you apply to 10 schools, 6 or 7 of those schools out of 10 are going to use the common application. And the value is, once you complete a common application, you could send that one application to all 7 of those schools. So it's a huge time saver. So it would really behoove your kids to fill out a common application, save it, and do all that good stuff. So when you come back to colleges, the colleges tab, after you do a common application, and you click on colleges I'm applying to, we ask students to enter the email address they use to develop the Common App and click match. And that syncs your Common App with Naviance. So now we have your Common App ready to go for when you're ready to apply to your schools. And we automatically upload your transcript, our school profile, all recommendations are uploaded into Naviance. Everything the schools need is in Naviance. So when you're ready and your students submit transcript request cards to the guidance office, on the transcript request cards, you're going to list the schools you're applying to. And basically all it is saying, please send my transcript to these schools. When you submit that, our secretaries load your colleges into your screen and return the card back to us. When we get the card back, that's our signal to start sending your materials out to your schools. So remember, there's a high percentage of schools that accept the Common App. The ones that don't accept the Common App still accept electronic documents. So the same process is being used for those schools. Except we're not sending the Common App, we're sending your transcript, we're sending your recommendations, school profile, all that, the other ancillary materials that the schools want. Any questions, guys? Stop me.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just worried that there's a lot of information out there about my student. Is this protected? My student, you're gonna have his social security number, you're gonna have his transcript, you're gonna have letters of recommendation. Can Joe Schmo go in?
In
and
here?
Yeah,
No.
and take it?
I mean, that's my nickname, so.
You
No,
can-
not everybody can access this.
Is it just colleges and the school?
Yes.
Only colleges that he selects.
Colleges
Okay.
that we're sending the
Right.
materials to.
So, no, that's not like any college can have access to it.
Okay, so
only-
if you didn't apply to it, they can't get in?
No.
Perfect, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. That does bring up a point, though, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but 5 minutes, maybe, about who has access to what. I'll tell you what colleges do have access to. Once you apply, where do you think they're going?
Facebook.
Facebook.
Where else? Well, Facebook.
Anywhere.
Facebook's for us, guys, let's face it. The kids, yeah, they're on things I never heard of. But the colleges have heard of it. Everything. There isn't a form of social media out there that the colleges are not hip to. And they go on every social media site doing searches, typing in Jane Smith. What shows up? Right? And stuff shows up. Kids have gotten decisions that they're not happy with, and they're perfectly good students and qualified candidates academically. And it makes you think, why haven't they gotten accepted? 9 times out of 10, when you dig a little deeper, you find out that they didn't clean up their social media in time. So we make a very strong point, and we also deal with this on a very unsavory end too, because a lot of conflict happens on social media. But all of the stuff that kids post on social media is going to be, you have to assume it's going to be accessed by the schools you're applying to. So that stuff is not necessarily protected because it's public. So searches produce all kinds of stuff. So you want to be careful about what you're putting out there on your social media pages. Okay. So you have these tabs across the top. And About Me, the most important feature to us is the student and parent brag sheet, because that's helping us write the recommendation. In the colleges tab, this is the most important feature, and I think the most helpful feature to not only us, but to your student. There's a college search function where across the top here, you'll see 8 different criteria. And each one of those criteria represents a separate screen. So as you move through these screens, you can enter the things that are important to you in terms of what types of schools you're looking at. My recommendation is, especially with your first search, don't be too specific. Okay, an example is, so we know we want to go to a 4-year school. I'm not so concerned right at the moment with public or private. I'm pretty sure I want to go to a co-ed school. And then you just keep clicking next. As you move through these screens, as you select criteria, you see this number changing. That's the number of schools matching the criteria you're entering into Naviance. That's why if you get really specific, you'll see that number go down to 0, and then it's not useful for you. So this is a really important screen because a major factor in choosing a college, I think, is a location. Now, oftentimes kids don't really take it as serious as we do. And I think it's a very serious matter because, number one, you can apply to, and this happens every year, by the way, I'm not making this up. You can apply to 20 schools. 13 of them are west of Arizona. Okay? 7 schools are in this half of the country. We think one of the most important factors is to visit. Because even though when we went to school as parents, the process was much simpler, mainly because there was so much less information out there. Now the amount of information is, in my opinion, it's helpful, but it can be very, very overwhelming, and it can shut people down. I've had people in tears, parents included, on the phone, in tears about this process and how overwhelming it can be. This is what has never changed since us parents have gone to college. you're still going to treat it like any major purchase you make in your life. You're not going to buy a house without walking through, checking out the neighborhood, the schools, right? You're not going to buy a car without a test drive and taking a look at, you know, the fuel efficiency and all of the factors that are important to you, right? Horsepower, maybe. I'm being laughed at for fuel efficiency. So that stuff never changes. You still want to visit the schools you're applying to. The likelihood that you're going to visit 13 schools on the West Coast is not very high. So I always try to make the point that if the only school that accepts you are one of the ones that you haven't visited, now you're in a position where they're going to want your money. So now you submitted a deposit, and the first time you step foot on campus is after you've paid, and you're 3 weeks away from your first class start, and you're at orientation. You hate the campus. What then? Think they refund you? No, there's no refunds. So, and now you're starting all over again, right? So visit the schools, make a realistic list, a reasonable list. Here's the other good thing about this search process. It's kind of selfish because oftentimes we're the dose of reality that we don't necessarily want to be. We would like you to have a realistic picture. I want to show you Linda's list. So Linda did this college search process, okay? And these are the schools she added to her list. If you click Compare Me, maybe, it puts you at the top of this list. So Linda's GPA and the average GPAs of all these schools. Linda's 2-section SAT score and the average of all these schools. The ACT score and the averages of these schools. Averages of Lawrence applicants in these years, between these years. Lawrence applicants.
Are those weighted or not?
Weighted. So the reason why I mention Lawrence applicants is because if you go to each individual school and you look at the admission, you look at the average GPA or the average SAT, it'll be slightly different. But generally, these are the school's averages. Because really, if you think about it, schools aren't accepting, you know, radically different grade point averages from Lawrence students just because we're so great. So these are the averages. This gives you a realistic picture of the schools you're applying to and how much of a candidate you are for those schools. Now, like I said, every year there are 1 or 2 kids where we have to shatter dreams. And I don't have that much power. And by shattering dreams, I mean that, you know, we're trying to paint a realistic picture to kids so that they don't go ahead and apply, have unrealistic expectations, and in the springtime get bad news. Then they come back to us and say, why did you lie to us? Right up front, we're going to say, make a list as big as you want from the start. You know, pick colleges that you've heard good things about, you saw on TV, you went online, your friends went to, your parents went to, whatever. Put them on the list. But then, once you put them on the list, take a look at where you stand, okay? What we do when these guys come back as seniors, we take a look at this list in the fall, and we shrink it down as best we can. We make it manageable. And then we say, now really, you know, it would be great if you can visit some schools between now and then, in the summer and whatever. But then you want to visit as many of the schools as you possibly can from your remaining list.
Could you get an idea of how many points, like some colleges are small, or they got a lot of people applying. You get an idea of how many numbers went into that?
Like how much data is actually in here. There's quite a bit of data
It's
in.
all Lawrence kids, right? So.
These are Lawrence kids. For example, these are all obviously New Jersey schools. We've had, I mean, every year we have, I don't know, what would you say? 80, 50, 75, 80, 90 kids apply to these schools, at least a handful of them. The data, the reason why I chose these schools is because the data is substantial. So these are very, very, these are worthwhile statistics that I'm showing you here. But there are some schools, it's a good point, there are some schools you'll put on your list and you'll see 2.4 GPA and 850 two-section SAT score. And you say, I'm in, I'm a candidate, right? But there's 2 students that applied to that school, and they both happen to be star athletes. So it skews the data, right? So if the general school's averages, standards, are 3.5 to 1,200, if I could throw a football 80 yards, I can get in with a 2.3 and an 850.
Right.
Not always. It's a slight exaggeration. The NCAA has been better about it. However, if you're a Division I type of athlete, you all know. I mean, you all know the landscape. You can make the school a lot of money. They're going to give you a lot of leeway on that kind of thing. Yes.
In addition to you filling out all of your information on the type of schools you want, you can also add schools to the list.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
What's
So
the average?
I'm sorry.
What's the average number of schools that most kids are applying to?
I'd say 7.
It's a good number.
7.
It's a good number. Every year we'll get to 20, 25.
I was surprised by the number that the kids in the library were saying 10, 11, 13. That seemed like a lot of schools to me.
Absolutely. It's a lot of schools to me too. And that's why I say, we get a lot of kids applying to many, many schools, and it's costly, and it's really unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to visit all those schools. And that's, to me, that's part of the downside with the information overload. When we were I remember, I tell the story, the old man story, right? That I had to send away for materials of the schools that I was interested in. There's no other way. I mean, I wasn't a star athlete. So they weren't sending me, they weren't seeking me out. So I had to my father's pick 5 schools and, we'll call them. So I called them up, dialed the phone and called them up. So, but now it's like there's so much information out there. It's almost like you're going shopping and you put too much things in your cart,
Can I say, just about the information that's out there, if you've taken the PSAT with the juniors, you all have, colleges access your information through ETS. So if you put your email down, which a lot of students do, they start getting inundated with emails. And a lot of students take that as the school's interested in me. And that might be true, but they cast a very wide net, and their goal is to get as many applications as possible because that boosts their ratings. So just because you get inundated with emails from a school doesn't necessarily mean that they.
It also comes in your mailbox. You must get one a day.
Yeah. So just be careful, and sometimes kids get false hopes because of that type of advertising, that type of marketing.
I just had a question on the college page. You were talking about syncing up the Common App
Yes.
with the email. Do we have to worry about a parent's email or a student's email? You know how since parents and students both have access to Naviance, and then
The Common App's a little different because when your students create the Common App, they're creating it based on all their information. So the email address that they're using is their email address. So the email address that they type in,
But syncing it up with Navia.
to sync it up with Naviance, they're gonna type in the email address that they use to develop the Common App into Naviance and their date of birth, and then click match, and it syncs them. I think I answered your question. I'm not sure I quite understand.
Well, I'm just concerned about making sure that the sync happens correctly with the right email, because let's say, for example, you said starting maybe this summer. So if a parent wants to go in while the child's away and not having access to email, with no access to the internet, and I might want to go in and start working on which email address do I, with a parent.
So do you have to set up both sites with the same exact email address? Yes, so that they match.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Use the same email address for everything that's college related. The Common App email has to be the same as the Naviance email.
Sorry about that. That's a great point, actually, because we get kids that try to sync it, and they don't remember what email address they use, and which I don't know.
This dad put something very nicely. He said, if your child has a very whimsical email, like,
Don't even go there.
poopsie, whatever, now's a good time to change it and, have something a little bit more professional sounding.
Yes.
But like on here, it says parents' information can also be added under the About Me tab, so parents can get email blasts. So I'm gonna put for that under my own email.
Yeah, we have, here, just so you know, there's the parent information and there's the student. Anyway, this is the parent's information, and if we have your information, normally we have your guys' data from Power School. We could put that information in here. If you have an email address that maybe you just developed and you want to send it to your counselor, we could add you guys in here. There's a lot of things that kids never see. We send out emails through Naviance. Kids never see it, but the parents call us. So many parents use it more than their students. So, and I think that you'll find, it's actually such a useful tool that I think you'll find it fun. And I think the kids, I don't know if you mentioned it in this session, but there are kids, you can see how many times they visited. There are kids in the 200s and 300s. They're in it every single day, It is kind of addictive because it's a very intuitive program. I mean, I figured it out enough to do a workshop on it, and if you knew me. It leads you to where you need to be. If you spend an hour in this program, you will know it better than I do, trust me. So it's got a ton of data, a lot of useful information in it, and if you don't use it, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Now, one thing I want to mention too is College Board, when you set up an account on College Board to register for the SAT, you'll find that they have a lot of similar features. I mean, College Board is, really it's like a college search engine. So, very similar features to Naviance, but you have a free account to Naviance as long as you're an active student. So, it's there for you, and everybody has their own account, so you might as well use it.
So if some of the kids went to a 2-year school, Mercer County College, and they really didn't take advantage of this, can they pay to use this? Because this is where the high school information's at.
Can they pay to use it? You mean after community college?
Yeah, say, okay, now I'm in my sophomore year, I'm gonna be transferring. You have all my information
They
here.
would still have access because they're
'Cause
still
he said
in the
after-
database.
They can, do they have to pay for it?
Don't think
No.
so.
See, here's the deal. When you graduate, we're supposed to make you inactive. So you shouldn't be able to access it when you're no longer an active Lawrence High School student.
Okay,
But when you get to community college, you're given an advisor. So the advisor assumes our role, and they have they have transfer conversations.
Okay.
articulation agreements that they have with other schools where, you know, they're gonna let you know about the GPAs that these schools are requiring.
For the most part, if you're transferring, they don't really care about your high school
That's true.
information. They want to see how successful you've been at college, because that's a better predictor than how you were at high school.
But I understand your point. It'd be nice to have a search engine like this available when you're about to transfer. And the reality is, Google's a pretty good tool too, you know, so, I mean, you know, this is handy because you have an account and this is what we use, but, you know, I told a story, the last group, where we have seniors, even though we've been working with them, we give them the account in 8th grade. They get to senior year and we talk about Naviance, and by that time we've met with them anywhere from 10 to 15 times. And they say, what's Naviance? Right? And the point I made was, even those kids go to college. So this is helpful, but it's not mandatory. You don't need to use it. If you don't use it, it's not devastating. You know, it's just very helpful. It can help you. Yep.
So just quickly to clarify her point, you have the Naviance program, which you share your students' username and password to get in to enter the information for the parents, right? And then within Naviance, we enter our parent information, and that's how we get the emails, but it's within the student's account, it's not a separate account.
Not a separate account.
Yeah.
You get,
And then that same email address and password that they use for Naviance, they'll use for the Common App, so that then that all syncs.
no, the Common App is totally separate from Naviance.
So when they create the account,
When
they
they create-
use the same email address.
My advice is to use the same email address for all your colleges, for Common App, for Naviance, for, you know, just pick an email address and use that as your college central email address.
Would you recommend using your school address?
Many students do. Actually, since we developed the .info system, most students have the .info email address there now.
All right, so the kids can change what email address for Naviance as well? They can, like I said,
no.
use one email for everything. Right now, they're all using their .info email address.
If you want to change it, you gotta come to us.
Everything.
You have to come to us. Yeah, we have to change it on this end. And then it'll take on your end.
Okay.
We have to update your profile. Yes,
That info expires when they graduate, right?
yes. I mean, it's a Gmail, it's really like a Gmail account,
Are you
but
talking about the LTPS?
yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Is there ever a list of where kids go to school or apply? I'm just wondering about the breadth of colleges that they apply to and that kids get accepted into and.
I was told jail for years.
Yeah, the jail part is not true, but yeah, very true. Yeah, we have a school profile that's available in the guidance office, and every year,
I actually don't think that that's there anymore. That's part of the school profile.
the list of the schools.
I think that they took that out to make it, because it was too long. But I'm sure
Too long.
the
Our store
profile.
kids go everywhere.
No, not that. The profile itself was too long, so to make it a little more, manageable.
Okay.
But we still have the page, it's just not on the profile. I wonder if we could make it a link just on the website.
Good.
Yeah. So we do have the information compiled. I just don't know if it's readily available right at this moment. We can certainly look into it and provide it on the guidance website.
And by the way, before I get to you, we always also ask kids, related to that point, we ask kids every year to keep us updated about the decisions that they get from the colleges they've applied to, where they've been accepted, where they've been denied, where they've been waitlisted. We put all that information in your student screens. That's what creates the valuable data on the other end that makes it such a great tool. A lot of times kids, they don't tell us, and if that becomes widespread, this thing kind of dries up and the data becomes obsolete. The data is generated from you guys letting us know, where you're going, where you've been accepted, things like that. Yep.
So with regard to the parent and child email accounts and Naviance, are there emails that parents and children to be receiving from Naviance, with updates or something like that?
Yeah. We select, when we send out communications through Naviance, we select whether we want it to go just to you or we want to CC parents. There are some things we CC parents on, and there are some things we really don't, because, I don't know, it's about a science trip in 3 weeks or something like that, that's not really completely applicable. I've often copied parents on bigger opportunities that the kids need the parents sign off in order to participate in. Absolutely, you'll get a lot of, like I said, parents receive a lot of the communication kids never do because they don't log in, but parents do. So if you're in the system, you'll get all the communications that the kids get, where you're copied. And you're often copied. Yes?
Can the compare be broken down into years? Like I saw that you have it 2009 to 2014. Is it broken down per year?
Next year it'll be 2010 to 2016. So it'll, yeah, we just.
Get rid of the old stuff.
Yeah. Anything that comes up after this, tomorrow, next week, a month from now, is anyone unfamiliar with the email system at Lawrence? How to reach us? Now you have the brochure, so our email address is right there. But it's always first initial, last name at LTPS.org. Yes. First initial, last name at LTPS.org. And that goes for your teachers too. So if you know your teacher's name, you can reach them by email. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.
You've all been reading about the new SAT, which is coming, 2016. They're going to pilot it in March, May, and June. Everything I've been reading says stay away from it. So, there's a lot of research out there, a lot of things that are different. Take the ACT, okay? I know we're not getting paid to recommend one or the other. It's just a personal thing. I just recommend the ACT. Okay? I think it's more real, and it's more of a comprehensive test of the student's knowledge.
Excuse me, are you saying this March, like the one in 2 days?
No, 2016, I'm sorry, yeah. And colleges, here's the other thing too. Because there's so much turmoil, I'm sorry, there's so much turmoil with all this, colleges are going to accept the old SATs as well as new SATs. So don't get panicky if you think you're taking the wrong one, all right? Everything's going to be accepted, yes.
Are you saying the colleges now will take either the SAT?
Not right now. Oh, these two tests, yes. In fact, ACT has surpassed SAT right now in numbers. It's a more recognized test. Colleges seem to like it more. We find a lot of the kids do better in the ACT than the SAT because they've studied, they've learned through the years, and it's subject-based. Okay, subject tests. Not all colleges require them. All right, don't go crazy signing up for these tests until you have a list of colleges that you think you're interested in. The ones that do require it usually require 3 of them. They're used for admissions and placement purposes. There's 20 different subject tests. And when you log on to College Board, you can see all these tests. The tests are an hour long each, so you can actually do 3 of them on a Saturday if you have to take subject tests. Okay. AP, all right, APs are coming up. We're hoping everybody got the AP sign-up sheet. We passed them out last week. Yes, thank you. Thanks. Okay, they're also used for college credit and placement. There's 37 of them offered in 22 areas. Score ranges from 1 to 5. Length of the test varies too, whether it's a Chinese test or a history test or whatever it is. But you can actually earn college credit, and these guys are going to talk more about that as well. But colleges usually accept a 3 and above is where they'll start giving you college credit. So you can save a fortune doing the AP exams as well as time. We had one student one year, what did he go in with? 18 credits?
Yeah, he went in as a sophomore at Rutgers.
Yeah, so it's something to think about.
So
have any guesses as how many colleges there are in this country?
Too many.
Anyone count them? Too many is right. Okay, so there's anywhere from 3,500 to about 5,000, depending upon what statistic you're using and who you're reading. So how do you choose? Well, you choose in a number of different ways. Naviance really can help you with, the program can help you narrow down your selection by the criteria that's important to you and the criteria that's important to your son or daughter. And just some of the criteria that you want to be looking at, and you'll be able to do this search electronically on Naviance, is the location. Some students, if you know, they have their heart set on going to Syracuse, but they hate snow. That's not a good idea to apply to Syracuse. Some of them, you know, students say, yeah, I want anything but New Jersey, because some colleges in New Jersey don't seem to have the same appeal as a college across the state lines. And they say, well, I'm going to go far away, I'll go to California. But you have to realize you're also coming back from California 4 times a year. It can get, you know, traveling can get costly. So state schools, we have some wonderful, terrific state schools here in New Jersey. I tend to think it's some of the best, and cost-wise, they're excellent, so you want to look at state schools. Setting is also important, whether you want a city school, a rural setting, or a suburban setting. And sometimes, I know with my son, he said, I don't want a city school, I do not want a city school. He did some tours of the southern schools, went to visit them, and on the way back said, well, we're in D.C., we might as well stop off in D.C. He ended up going to looking at a school in D.C., and that was it. He went to the school in D.C. after saying, no, no, no. So really, visiting is so important because you don't really know the flavor, or you can't really tell what the school is like unless you visit, because all those brochures and everything you see on the computers, they're ads. So they always take a picture of the best, you know, tree that's blossoming on the campus, you know, even if it's the only tree on the campus. You know, they're sort of like ads for buying a house. They all sound great. But when you go and visit, something is going to work for some people and something is not going to work for others. The size of the school is going to be important for some of you. Some of you want, for a bigger school, you tend to get more of that kind of the campus with everyone turns out for the sporting events, the football or the basketball game. The course selection, they tend to have more course selections. On the downside for a big school, you're going to get bigger classes, bigger faculty-student ratio for the most part, particularly with the introductory courses. So it's not uncommon in an intro to psych or intro to bio course for some of the very, very large schools to have anywhere from 200 to 500 students in a lecture hall, and then you get taught by, you know, TAs. Academic focus and major. Anyone know what the most popular major is for students coming in? Correct. Undecided. That's the most popular. If you're undecided, which most students are, make sure you're going to a liberal arts school that requires students to take a variety of subject areas. Extracurricular activities, if you're thinking about playing sports or if you have a particular passion for a particular extracurricular, make sure the school has that available to you. Admission policy and requirements, that's extremely important, and it's also very difficult to do because it means taking a look at yourself, at the student, to be able to look at themselves and say, you know, I may want Harvard, but my GPA is 3.4. There's nothing wrong with a 3.4. It's a wonderful GPA, but it's not going to get you into Harvard unless you're, you know, going a legacy or going to build a building there, okay? So Naviance has this great scattergram. You'll see it. It shows you exactly based on the GPA of the student and the SAT score where they fit, and the overall picture. Support services, if a student needs extra time or if they have need any other kinds of accommodations. How strong is the program? Every school offers student services. Some do a better job of it than others. Okay, next. Thank you. The visit is extremely important, as I said before. I always think it's more important to do a walking tour than it is to do a virtual tour. Virtual tour means you're going online, you're going on the website. And whether you apply before or after, we recommend that you go visit first and then apply, but not all students do that. Some students say, well, these are the schools I've targeted, I'll see where I get in, and then I'll go and visit and choose from there. You can go, every school has tours every day. Some have more than two, some have tours that are 2 or 3 times a day. That's about an hour length. There's also open houses. Open houses are different than tours. Open houses are usually twice a year in the fall and in the spring. Sometimes they're more. And they're a more in-depth tour of the school. You get to meet with professors, and there's a student panel similar to this, where you get to ask questions from the students who actually attend there. They usually break up students and parents. Parents have their thing to do in an open house, and students have their activities, and then they feed you for free, part of it. So that's always good. You can go, it's always better if the school is in session to go on a campus tour, but sometimes you can go, for instance, in our April vacation is a good time because often our vacations do not coincide with vacations of the school. We get to see the students who are there. Summertime is okay to go to. More and more students are attending classes in the summer. The time of the day is really, you can plan your tour by location. Also, I would familiarize yourself with the school. Know what questions you want to ask. The more tours you go on, the better you're able to see what you want and what you don't want in the school. Okay, so we now, as I said before, have these really, we are so appreciative of having seniors who volunteer their time here. And they're here for you to ask questions. They are in the process of having, they've all applied, and they're in the process of making the decision which school they want to go to. Well, some have already made that decision. So what I'd like you guys to do, you're going to have to speak up because we don't have mics, and I know some of you have soft voices, Aditi, right? So if you could just go down here and say your name, and you may want to start by saying how many colleges you apply to. Then we're going to open it up to questions, okay? So go ahead and do it.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Aditi. I applied to 7 different colleges, and what I wish to major in is computer engineering.
Hi, I'm CJ. I'm planning on majoring in computer science with either business, economics, or linguistics. I applied to quite a few colleges. I didn't go through all the applications, but most of the schools I applied to were the Big 10 schools.
I'm Sean. I also want to do computer science, and I applied to 8 schools and heard back from 3, and I'm still waiting on 5.
Hi, I'm Marifred. I applied to about 10 schools, and I hope to major in political science.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I applied to 3 schools, and right now my major is undecided, and I've committed to University of Maryland.
Hi, my name is Simi. To be honest, I don't remember how many schools I applied to. And I hope to do the pre-law track.
Hi, my name is Joanna. I applied to 7 schools. I plan on majoring in criminology, and I committed to Penn State.
Okay, folks, ask away. What do you want to know? And students too. What do you want to know? Help you. Yes.
I was just wondering whether the schools applied to send the Common App, and if they did or did not, and also if there were schools that did not accept that, and how difficult was that process?
Well, Rutgers is not on the Common App. It's actually a very easy application to fill out. That's a quick one. For me, University of Maryland was also not on the Common App, but yeah, I think a lot of the state schools are not on the Common App.
How about for the others?
Yeah, all of the schools I applied to, all but 2 were on the Common App. So for me, it was really easy. I just filled everything out. I tried to get it done, some over the summer, some just trying to bang it out in the beginning of the school year. And it was a really easy-going process, just filling it out. It's very straightforward. And even the 2 schools that I applied to that weren't on the Common App, it was still, they give you step-by-step instructions. So it just meant going onto a different website. A lot of the stuff could transfer over too. They asked a lot of the same questions.
Yeah, same thing. Most of my schools were Common App, the few that weren't. I mean, they're really asking the same things, so you just kind of have to answer all the same questions, and it's not that difficult if they're not on the Common App. You just go to the website. Some of them do. It depends on the essay, and you're gonna have to write a few essays anyway. So, like some of my schools, I could reuse my Common App essay for what their essay topic was. So you'll have to look at the topic. Sometimes they overlap. Sometimes they don't. You just have to write more.
If I can interject, Common App usually goes live in August, so you'll be able to see, but they are using the same essay for next year that they have this year, for next year as well.
I want to put in a plug too for our boot camp. Mrs. Welsh and I, we've done it now, 3 times, right? 3 or 4 times. So how many here, did any of you guys, all you guys, yes, attended the Common App? Usually we do it the 3rd or 4th week in August. We ask all the students, it's only for students to come in. We get them on the Common App, they bring their Chromebook, we get them started. We show them that one of the things that they're going to have to do is to sync their Common App with the Naviance account. Because what you will do with the Common App is the students apply to the Common App with one set of data. They pick the essay, they write the essay. There are several supplemental essays for various schools. And then they sync that with Naviance. And in Naviance, what we send out is the transcript, our recommendation, usually 2 teacher recommendations, and a school profile, which is information about the school and our grading system, which colleges like to look at. So when colleges open the electronic file, everything is there in one packet. Okay. Anybody want to say anything else about the Common App? Questions? Any other questions? Go ahead.
Did any of you make a mistake that you wish you could kind of pass on that knowledge to these juniors?
During my process during the junior year, I was all for a small school, not big at all, and I wanted more not south. I wanted more south and not cold. I hated winter. And I actually ended up doing the complete opposite, and I went to a huge school, and it's very cold there. But basically, once you step onto the campus and you walk around, you will change your perspective so much. I was all for this one school, and once I got on campus, I was I don't see myself here. So I definitely suggest going on a visit. Maybe most likely to go before you apply, because I didn't apply that school then because I didn't see myself there. So save the money and go on a go before you apply.
I think another important one is I tried to put off applications as long as possible and ended up struggling major in the beginning of the year. It is awful. Start your application in the summer.
Yeah, right now was the time last year when I was finding the teachers I wanted to ask to do my recommendations. So you need 2 teachers and then a guidance counselor. So it helps so much if maybe by the end of this year you approach 2 teachers and just ask them, hi, I really liked having you for this class. I thought I really got to know you well. Would you mind doing one of my recommendations? So you have it verbally agreed upon at the end of this year, and then the beginning of next year, you can just send them the notification through Naviance where they have to write it, and then they can remember, oh right, I said Marifet, I'll do her recommendation last year then. So they're all set to go. But like Hannah, I kind of put off doing my applications, and then it came down to the supplement essays. So on the Common App itself, once you put in the schools that you're applying to, some of the schools can even have 2 supplement essays. So that's in addition to your Common App essay, that's the one generic essay. They'll give you, I think it's 4 different prompts. You can choose to answer one of the 4 as your general Common App essay. And then depending on what schools you apply to, some ask you to do additional supplement essays, where they ask you to do any question. It could be, it's like, I wanted to go to political science. I had a couple that said, like, oh, what made you want to go into political science? What are some salient issues you wish to discuss? And then for the University of Richmond, one of my prompts was, talk about spiders. So like, I had no idea. They could range from all over the place because their mascot is a spider. But yes, they range from all over the place, but it does get to be a lot of writing. So if you can try to do it in the beginning of summer, the beginning of August, that would really help you.
Yeah, make sure you guys keep on top of your supplements. I had my Common App essay done earlier in the year, and I got my English teacher to look over it. I edited it, made sure, like, I was happy with the draft when I submitted it, but a lot of my supplements, I didn't realize, like, how many separate ones I would have to do. So, like, some of them, I didn't get my English teacher to look at them. I mean, I think they were good, but I definitely could have put some more time into some of my supplements. So make sure you, like write out all the things you have to do and make sure you're on top of them.
Yeah, I had a similar situation like Sean with my essays. My Common App essay, I had it read through by multiple teachers and also Ms. Coben. I had like perhaps maybe 4 or 5 drafts at the end of it for my Common App essay, which is like the essay we sent to the colleges. For my supplementary essays, I ended up doing a lot of them last minute. So at most, I got them there by maybe 1 teacher class. And I procrastinated on my applications a lot. I think I submitted all of them within 2 hours of the deadline. So I wouldn't suggest doing that.
Don't, because the computer can get messed up and they can all have, no.
The custodians and the janitors here say, like, oh my gosh, you never leave the school, like, you're always here, you should really go home. But it's because I love getting involved with things. So I said, I know I want to be in a school that has the city background. I want to be able to get out into the city and have more volunteer efforts there. So I went up to Boston, I went to DC, I just tried to get and see some of the big city schools. But then at the same time, I knew I liked knowing my teachers. I like forming these close relationships with classmates. So I knew I wouldn't be able to do that in a bigger school. So I really focused on just some of the medium-sized schools. And I knew, since I've been a cheerleader here for the past 4 years, I wanted some of that, I call it like the rah-rah factor, where like I wanted people to go out to some of the games and just have that overall like, support for your school. So that went into the size too. So I know I wanted more of like that middle-sized school. And really, like Joanna said, you really just have to get out there and see the campus.
I think it's important, to first figure out how far you're willing to go, because I can really narrow it down. Like I told my parents my limit was 6 hours by car, nothing more, and that really does help.
The way I made my list is I talked to Ms. Coben, I talked to some of my teachers, my parents, even my friends, and I just made like a huge list of all the colleges I might want to apply to. And then I just kind of started looking up information about them online, looking how many students go there. So I kind of crossed off the ones that were too small, a few that were too big. And then as I started going on college visits, I would see, like this college totally just isn't my vibe. Like I wouldn't fit in here. So I just made a huge list, talked to people, and then just slowly crossed things off until I had the 8 schools I wanted to apply to.
So thank you for